to the Author Spotlight series, where we shine a light on some amazing authors and their amazing stories. Today, I'm joined by Willa. So, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you so much.
We're so glad you're here. I hope you had a nice day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fantastic day. It's still bright and sunny outside, so very excited to enjoy some of the summer so far.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and the book.
Alrighty. So I'm Canadian. I'm from Ontario. I'm just outside of Toronto. And the my book is an ode to the honey tongued, which is a queer fantasy horror with a side of spice. It's not a romance per se, but it is basically if you introduced Midsummer to Hosier's music to Celtic mythology and what that could entail in terms of the chaos surrounding it all.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. What was the first spark or idea that led to an ode to the honey-tongued?
So the first spark I watched, so it was already kind of brewing. I wanted to write a cult novel after watching Midsummer, the 2019 horror movie from with Florence Pugh, and it like because that it I still think about the movie to this day. It's one of my favorite horror movies, which is not a genre I usually lean into. And then I went to go see Hosier play in Toronto a couple of years ago, and it was when he was first releasing Unreal and Earth, his newest album, and when he started singing in. It was when he was singing DeSelby. I think it was DeSelby Part One, and I'm watching him, and I'm watching the screen start to sort of shift with the stars, and it's sort of turning into this circle of like just sort of this like the classic like hypnotism. You will do this if you like keep watching. It was like one of those like backgrounds almost, but like less kitschy.
Mhm.
And then he started singing in Irish, and I just remember having the very vivid thought of if he had some kind of magic, we would all just be like we would be a part of his cult. Like this would just be like him building a cult. And then not saying that he would, of course, but it was just that thought process that sort of stuck with me. And then went home after the concert, which a phenomenal concert. Wrote it down, and then that sort of idea kept playing and like kept toying with my mind, and I was like playing, like fiddling with it as I was at my day job, until it sort of like came into this fully fledged idea and novel.
Oh wow, that's amazing because every author kind of like has a place where like they start or an idea that sparks it, which you would never really think about, but those themes really transfer into first of all you naming, the book an ode to the honey tongued, and then the themes that are carried on throughout the book, which is like kind of like amazing that you that's where it all started from because it does have a theme and it shows. So that's like fantastic to hear.
Thank you. I really hoped that there was a theme in the novel. Sometimes the words just don't make any sense until it's like all together.
I think it's like what it's kind of like the crux of the author and the writer. It's just like sometimes like you yourself don't know like if it's like translating, but it actually does translate when like it's all together and the readers are, digesting it.
Fantastic. I'm so glad.
So, Mayo's life in Pleasantfield is described as mundane and repetitive. What inspired you to create such a setting, and what does it represent for Mayo's internal world?
Yeah, so meal actually, so meal is the French word for honey, which is part of why it was also named honey tongued. But with Pleasantfield, there's a movie from 1998 with like Tobey Maguire that's titled Pleasantville, which
Mhm.
I watched when I was in English class way back when in high school. And it's these kids who get trapped in this perfect like 1950s sitcom world. And I want Meal to feel like it I want Meal to feel like this place was so repetitive, and just need like Faye needed to get out, and explore and learn more about the world, like because I wanted to isolate Fair in a way to make it easier for Mabon to come on and pluck Faye uh, out of Fair's day-to-day life. Pleasant Field is a mashup of Springfield and Pleasantville, which are two very common American suburbia towns / city names. I think you'll find there's at least 20 Springfields within America. I may be exaggerating there, but it feels like it. I mean, it's also very popular with The Simpsons. But that was just sort of the epitome of like American suburbia, like that nuclear family, and very heteronormative in terms of the vibes. A lot of what I write is vibe based. But I found I found like it's just a very unassuming American town name. I didn't want it. I wanted Pleasant Field to feel very much like an afterthought. Like this is like everything is very mundane. Nothing extraordinary is happening out of here. And so when Mabon comes through and has his pop-up show where there's and it's all acoustic and it's just this tiny little venue, and that being the impetus for Neil to become his personal journalist throughout the tour, I wanted it to feel like, yeah, this is a jumping off point, but we're never going to ever be coming back to this place.
Okay. Yeah. So Mabon is such a mysterious figure. Without giving too much away, what does he symbolize in the larger arc of the story?
He's Predator. He not to like I don't want to spoil much, but he is impetus. He is the reason why Neil is able to sort of explore and get out of there. So he is lifting up the voices, but he is also the predator that is he's hunting for something. He's desperate for something. It's that he's passionate about what he does, and he is desperate to stay relevant. And so with the way that he's pulling in Meal and the way that he's pulling in his fans at a large after Meal starts writing for him, it is I really wanted that sort of to be explored as well. Again, going back to the themes with like a parasocial relationship, because around the time that I was writing this, the Eras tour was coming out, and it was and that was such a huge cultural impact for everyone, like including myself. Like I was constantly watching the videos on TikTok, and so seeing this in that parasocial relationship, it sort of fit within the book as well in terms of like how I wanted, or in terms of what I wanted like Mabon to really like be the figurehead of at some point. Like I wanted him to know how to get to his end goal, and he knew what he needed to do. And so Neil was unfortunately part of that piece. It wasn't but they didn't realize until it was a little bit later into the book, and it was like until he finally figured out the best way to get Meal on his side.
So the title is both poetic and evocative. So why an ode to the honey-tongued? What does honey-tongued mean in the context of the novel?
So I mean, if you want to break up the title into two parts, you have ode and then you have honey-tongued. And we know that an ode is it's the ode is a lyrical poem that's used to address a particular subject. It's usually written in a varied or irregular meter, or within the constraints of poetry, which I felt really fit with the book as well, especially with the pacing and how eventually it gets to the point where no one really knows what's happening because of the way that Meal is sort of digesting all the information, because we're only seeing it through Faye's eyes. We're not seeing it through Mabon's eyes. We're not seeing it through any of his inner circle. We're only seeing it through Meal's eyes. And so having that like very off kilter was by having Meal be so off kilter was by design. And then with honey tongue, or an ode is also, sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. An ode is also like a form of praise. And it's looking, and it's also considering the fact that Mabon's looking for praise, and he's constantly like getting that external motivation to keep going. It felt like that was also a really important part to encapsulate within the title. But then honey-tongued, we know, has two meanings. The first is that eloquent and persuasiveness that we usually expect with it being honey-tongued. And Mabon is extremely eloquent and extremely persuasive. It's part of his character. He's very suave. He's very crafty. And so him being honey-tongued was real, or like being deemed honey-tongued was really, really important for me. But then also because this is an adult book, and there is some spice, and there is some there is some particularly spicy moments within the book, because it's not a romance per se. Meal and Mabon do get together at some point, and Mabon does use his tongue for Meal, and so it felt pretty like literal in terms of like honey tongue. That's like the most like non like aggressive way that I could say that. Yeah. But it was just a bit on the nose, which is why Meal is also just a fun name to have for Faye's character, because it really just fit in with everything surrounding it as well.
So there's an undercurrent of magic or the uncanny here. Did you draw on mythology, folklore, or something else when building this world?
So I definitely drew on like the folklore and mythology and Celtic mythology. A lot, definitely, like I've always been a big mythology fan growing up. I was like, my nose was always in a book with mythology, and my late night searches were all like Egyptian mythology or Greek mythology, and just like soaking in as much as I possibly could. So having this undercurrent of the other world and fairies, especially within Celtic mythology, which is not a mythology I usually like lean towards, but has definitely been one in recent years that I've been getting more interested in. It felt important, especially with the characters the host of characters that I had, but then also that need, the feeling of unease as well within it, because you're building up to this point where these characters are realizing that there's more to it than just a musician trying to gain followers. There's more to it, and so having the uncanny and having the mythology of fairies and the other world, and then how the fairies interact with humans was integral to sort of explain like why some of this could be happening.
Mail uses the pronouns fae and fair. Can you talk about the decision to use non-pronouns and how it shaped Mail's identity?
Yeah. So Meal is, so when I first was planning the book, Meal's character was originally a gay, like a male gay journalist. And it had a very different ending from where it ended up. But Meal, it again, it went through several iterations. I can definitely look through my book my like little notebook to see where all the planning sort of took place, and where everything changed. But I think with Neil's character in particular, the fae fair pronouns, I discovered when I was looking up different neo pronouns, because when I write, I'd like to do a lot of like self discovery and self exploration as well. I'm like, how would I feel about this? Like, what is like sort of exploring and seeing different ways and point of views, and it helps for me to be able to put myself within those point of views and explore both my identity as well as my character's identity. So using the neo pronouns, by the end of planning, I knew that Meal was going to be a non-binary character. So I was originally going to use they them pronouns, but then I was looking through I don't even know what I think I was looking at neo pronouns, because I think I was going to use zer pronouns, and I just want to make sure I was typing it right and like how to use those pronouns appropriately, and making sure that I was using them in the correct context with writing, because it's not something that I think about in a day-to-day life. But I found Fae Fur as a set of pronouns on a Google image search from, I think, the University of Washington.
Yeah.
And with everything that honey-tongued, which honey-tongued is, and like the pulling in of the mythologies and the other world and the fairies, having a human character with the pronouns Fae Fur just seemed to really fit with everything. And it was, I like, there were so many layers to the theme at that point too, where I was like, this is perfect for this for Meal's character to have that Fae Fair pronouns, which also built into that feeling of other and the isolation that Faye was feeling at the beginning of the book, while Faye was still in Pleasantfield. Go ahead, sorry.
So I was just going to ask, so with the honey-tongued,
Yeah.
what dynamic is there between Meal and Mabon in 3 words? Like, what is the dynamic between those two characters, and how that also feeds in with like Pleasantfield and them kind of never going back there? Because you did mention that there's nothing really tying him down there. I mean, when we open up, he's in this like they're in this like situation where I'm trying to say it right.
Yeah, Faye Fair.
I'm trying to use those pronouns. Where Fair feels like he's trapped career-wise, life-wise. So what exactly does that entail regarding Meal and Mabon and their dynamic?
So Meal finds Mabon as sort of this. I don't know if I can do this in 3 words. Processing wise, I don't think I can do it in 3 words.
Okay, just answer it in general then.
Okay. Thank you. Meal finds Mabon to be a very gregarious character, and he's basically the key to unlocking this freedom. So he's the key to freedom for Faye, to explore and to become more involved within the world, and to see the world at large, because it's very difficult to travel within such large countries. Speaking as a Canadian, because if you don't have a vehicle, you're pretty much landlocked to where you are until you get a vehicle. And Meal never felt like a character who had a vehicle. Like Faye were originally from some kind of city. Haven't gone too far into the backstory for for Meal at this point, but it felt like there never needed to be some sort of experience to have a car. Like, it was always public transport. So not having that ability, that freedom within a vehicle, seemed like they were Faye were stuck exactly where in Pleasantfield. For Mabon, Meal was the linchpin to what he needed in order to succeed in his goal.
Okay.
Meal was all he didn't realize until he had met Meal and saw the effect that Meal had with publishing the first piece, or the first review of his shows, how much influence Meal had, and how they were able to weave words together in order to become such a successful journalist. Because Meal's just, at this point, at the very beginning of the book, Meal is just writing these like crappy little pieces about food drives, and not food drives, and like very unimportant or unassuming pieces that aren't stretching their Faye's ability to write and to pull in readers. So that was definitely part of it. But I just wanted to go back to the neopronouns, because I'm not non-binary, and I don't I am queer, and I do have I am within that sphere, but I just wanted to say, don't use don't just use my words. I don't know if people are using this as like a writing podcast as well to get inspiration or advice, but I found like I've read a few books and few pieces of fan fiction with non-binary characters. And so like, and I know a few people identify as non-binary, but because I'm not non-binary, I definitely made sure to do a lot of research. And I found a lot of like Tumblr blogs and like Reddit posts and like blogs in general to sort of help me writing non-binary characters in order to make sure that I wasn't doing that doing Neil's character and Faye's identity as a disservice. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want people to just think, oh, she knows everything. I don't. I absolutely do not. I'm constantly humbled every day by the vast amount of things I don't know.
I think I can resonate with you on that. So what do you hope readers take away from Neil's journey, particularly Fair discovering of, what lies beneath the surface of celebrity, performance, and attraction?
I think the main idea, because the main idea was that Neil, like, don't just put your whole identity into one person who doesn't know you exist, because there's an ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Mabon has an ulterior motive for every fan that he gets. There's a reason why he is trying to gain more and more fans. And there's a reason why Neil is being pulled into this as well, and it's because he needs to have control. Especially with fans, and especially with fandoms like the Swifties, is with fandoms, just sort of seeing like people interact with celebrities online. COVID was really interesting in that we were able to start seeing more authentic sides, or like more open sides of these actors and actresses and musicians online. And we got to see all these celebrities in a way that we wouldn't usually see, like they weren't as polished as what we usually see them.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that people have taken that for granted, and we've forgotten that they're also human, and that despite them being famous and like signing up for being movie stars and being musicians, that there's still people, and they deserve their privacy, and that their motives and their privacy is really important to them, and that we can't apply our morals on people who have their own set of morals. Like the amount of times I've seen, oh, why hasn't this person spoken up about this? And it seems like a catch-22, because sometimes they'll speak up and then they'll get yelled at, or sometimes they won't speak up and they'll get yelled at. And they deserve their privacy, and we don't know what their ulterior motives are. We don't know what is motivating them to be who they are, and they are welcome. They should be allowed to have their privacy as creatives within the space. They don't owe us anything, and I think that that parasocial relationship was really important to sort of touch upon, especially after seeing and like still seeing like the effects of like Kit Connor being forcibly outed as bisexual, I believe bisexual, after Heartstopper came out for the first season. It's like, as one of the most recent experiences, and seeing that, or like the way that people talk about celebrities, like they're either too fat or they're too thin, or like if they lose a lot of weight, they're like, oh my gosh, like what happened? They don't owe us anything. And I think that's something that we as fans need to see and need to be reminded of. And this is, of course, with Honey Tongued, it's a very, very it's a very extreme case, and it's fantasy wise in terms of like what could happen. But it is, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So loneliness, identity, and yearning seem to pulse beneath the narrative. Were these themes you set out to explore from the start, or did they emerge through your writing?
I didn't even plan for those to be themes, actually. They probably just came out from writing. I'm trying to think where I was in my mental health at the time that I was writing this. I mean, I definitely, I think about it when I was writing this, I was yearning for like for some more consistent work in terms of my day job, and I have since found that, and it's all up in the air again because of it's the nature of my contract work at the moment. But I've yeah, no, like loneliness and yearning definitely. I didn't catch. I'm afraid I've just sort of blanked on the last one you've just said, but they weren't definitely themes that I was going out to explore with the characters. That's for sure.
Yeah. So with Meal,
Mhm.
we saw that obviously, like, did you set out to explore Meal and Meban in the sense of did they find each other in themselves, if that makes sense? So were their characters, because obviously when it all opens up, they're in a space where, like, career-wise, they feel trapped. They don't really know themselves. They're yearning for something. Do you think that Meal found something in Meban through their relationship, or was that something that just kind of happened? Or
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I think that Mabon sort of like love bombed Meal throughout the initial like first half, and like he was flirting with Meal, and it got to the like when it I think it became sort of this unbidden attraction and like this potential romance when spoiler alert, they smoked a joint together on a balcony in Los Angeles, and after or before a show, or after like before he went to the recording studio to write to work on some of his songs. uh Mabon, I don't think Mabon found anything within Meal other than that, again, that linchpin, that missing piece of what he needed in order for his plan to work. But Meal, because we're only seeing it through Meal's eyes, Meal definitely found Mabon to be like a confidant, and I think that because Meal was so isolated within Pleasantfield, that any attention that Faye could get from Mabon was incredibly important for that for Faye to experience and to become more confident within fair skin. That was an incredibly important part in terms of the confidence building, which it builds, but it's also at that point too. Things are starting to happen, and Faye's starting to experience things differently than a regular timeline would have. Mhm.
do you think Faye would look back on the experience with Meban pleasantly, or just kind of like wish that they never met Meban at all?
I think it's bittersweet. I don't know how far I don't know if I don't know how far you've read into the book, or if you have read the whole book, you'll have to forgive me. But by the end of the book, there's been some drastic changes to Meal's character directly at the hands of Mabon, and so I think that Meal probably wishes, like, I think Meal realizes that Faye stuck. Like, there's nothing that Faye can do to get out of the position that they're in at the moment, which is why it is that horror experience of like uh, unable to move on from this pairing. I think that Meal would probably look back at the beginning of the relationship and say, okay, this is good up until this point, or like, because Faye's manipulated into the position as well by a few other people than just Mabon. And so Meal being so Meal would definitely probably say up to a point they were really pleased about the relationship that they had with Mabon, and then I think it was that when the two of them started to cross that line, that was when Meal should probably have gone, okay, gotta hold back, and then we'll go our separate ways. But again, what are you gonna do with the way that with Mabon's character? because he needed Faye, and he was going to get Fair any way possible.
Mm-hmm. So what was your writing process like for this novel? Did you come out with, one favored or go-to process or something that you did when writing?
So part of it was like that exploration in terms of the characters. I had probably the same like 5 or 6 artists on repeat throughout the entire writing process. So a lot of Hosier, some Noah Kahn, Fish in a Birdcage I had as a musician as well, that I was listening to a lot, to sort of get that creepy horror vibes within it.
Yeah.
But then also like I was exploring with the process of it. It was definitely like making sure that I had the correct vibes in order to be able to put myself within the space to write these characters.
So were there any scenes that were particularly difficult to write, either emotionally or technically?
It was writing ambiguously, and then that with the timeline being so messed up. That was extremely difficult. The mind, like just the sort of the mind altering substances for Meal, was an extremely difficult thing to do. But it was, yeah, that was probably the hardest part, because I didn't want to be overly ambiguous and be so completely off the timeline that readers were going to get frustrated and they weren't going to read the book. Because that was a risk. That was going to be that I was taking with the timeline being so messed up. And but that being said, I think that I was able to toe that line pretty well. Like there's still sort of that through line of, okay, like this is happening, but then we are still also in the same boat as Meals, and we are confused with everything. In the same, while Meal is also just trying to figure out where Faye is.
And is there like a character that you started writing at the beginning of this, book that surprised you? Or is there like a standout character or something that surprised you when, in the beginning, maybe you were resonating more with one character, and then as you wrote, something surprised you about a completely different character and you just totally fell in love, or it changed the whole narrative or direction of your writing?
I mean, I love both I love both the main characters. I love Meal and Mabon. Mabon's inner circle, like his best friends, so Augie, Ophi, Brady, and then Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Those 4 characters were, I think, dare I say, Ophi's probably my favorite character that I've written within that group. But those 4 characters have definitely sort of like sparked my imagination of how can I continue this series on, with it, like it being interconnected, and interconnected standalones, which was never the plan for this book. This book was supposed to be a one and done.
Yeah.
Then these characters have come in, and I'm like, oh, like this would be really interesting to sort of explore and build upon as well. Which is rude, because how dare they? Like I have so many other plans. I have so many other plans and like projects that are currently taking the forefront, and now I'm like shunting them all aside so I can work on these next few books. I'm like, this was not the plan, guys. You can't be doing this to me.
Wow. Is it like a trilogy or like a whole full-blown series, or how do you see that shaping out?
Oh my gosh, like I'm just looking. I think I have, which ones are, I think I have like about 3 or 4 full-length novels planned, including Honey Tongued, or like ideas that are percolating. And then a few plans for novellas. And then I've been working on, in my spare time, procrastinating writing hockey romance, sapphic hockey romance for the PWHL.
Yeah.
I've been procrastinating writing that by writing some like very quick horror short stories that fit within this world as well, but definitely we're never going to be a full-length novel. So it's rude. The covers are already made. I just have to write the book now. I just have to plan everything out. Yeah.
Oh, and how do you like decide or settle on like which one to write first? Because I feel as though like sometimes like I just go with whatever I'm like writing, but then it ends up I have like a lot of like unfinished stories just hanging about.
When I was in 8th grade, I was very, very strict in my writing schedule. Like I was writing like 1,000 words a day. I was trying to write a chapter a day for one book. And then I think within like the course of 2 or 3 years, I think I had written about 30 books, which will hopefully never see the light of day within the existence that they are now, unless they are heavily, heavily revised, because they are, again, 13-year-old writing. Like it's it's stuff that I'm like cringing thinking about alone.
I'm sure it'll be like good stuff though. You've got to like read back on it. Do you just laugh?
I don't read my old writing. I can't. I just can't read it anymore. I cringe. But I have pulled plans from the past and like reworked them for now, which is the current set of novels that I am working on, my current set of fantasy novels I'm working on that are being sent off to editors at the moment. That was plans like 10 plus years ago. I'm like, okay, I can rework this now. I'm very far removed from the original source of this cringe. But with in terms of writing now, it really just depends on how I'm feeling. So like one of the books within this honey-tongued universe, I think, is going to be a very, very short novel, or just like on the cusp of novella to novel. And that one is, I'm really excited about it, but I'm not. I like it's like Aphrodite and Hephaestus and a glass blower, and they use the glass blower as this like go between for their relationship, and it's like I love the idea of it, but I only am really writing it when I'm like at within specific moments in the month, like when I'm feeling like a very particular type of way, and I'm like, okay, like it's time to work on this book and this book alone. But I usually can like sit down and like once I get the plans out of the way, then I can sort of like figure out the best time to write. And right now there's been a lot of drama within the Women's Hockey League in terms of the expansion draft, and that has really been the forefront of a lot of my thoughts. And I've been working on getting this hockey romance out, at least drafted, the initial draft, for a while. So I'm just trying to get through it at this point.
So the prose is lyrical, dreamy, and a little dangerous. How do you strike that balance between beauty and tension in your language when you're writing?
Very, very carefully. I wanted, like, it needed to sound it needed to sound ethereal, so making sure that I use word choices, making sure I had the correct vibes on in the background when I was writing it, and conversing with friends and other authors to make sure that I wasn't going too heavy-handed one way or another. But I mean, a lot of the songs that Mabon sings are ones that I was writing as well for this book, and so making sure that that I was trying to emulate a lot of Hosier's like lyrical style, and he's a lyrical genius. I am not. I am not a songwriter by any means or by any stretch. I don't have that ability to get lyrics into songs and like figure out how everything works in that regard. Like that's too many moving pieces. But I found that having like sort of like looking at his stuff and then figuring out the themes within the novel and figuring out sort of the songs that I wanted to use were really important in order to create this sort of lyrical experience for the characters and for readers as well.
So how did you keep track of the emotional thought lines while writing a story that blends grounded reality with a fanatical, like fantastical horror theme with it? So how did you strike that tone?
So I've sort of I planned the romantic plot line throughout the novel. Like I had my basic idea when I was initially planning it, and then I sort of plan each chapter. And so I knew where I wanted my emotional beats to be that way, and I knew where I wanted that romance, where I wanted the romance to switch and wanted it to change. In terms of in terms of the relationship between Mille and Mabon, I definitely I knew where I wanted that to end. And so that was, it was a really interesting experience, because it is so far removed from what I usually write, with romances. Um, so just I again, it was just a lot of pre-planning. And while I'm a bit of a plantser, so I like to plot, but I also like to like pants a little bit and make sure that my characters are sort of like free flowing and like they have that experience and that movement to them, so that they feel like breathed in people. So making sure that while they were still on track, I was able to, with the overall arching plot, making sure that that through line of that relationship fit within the characters as well. So it's just like embodying the characters to be able to make sure that they were, to make sure that they felt real.
So you mentioned that you're a bit of a plotter and a prancer. So do you specifically outline your stories, or does it just kind of help you discover them as you write? And how does that affect or twist the pacing of an ode to the honey-tongued?
So I write out the basics of what I want to happen in each chapter. I have my overarching idea, and then I plan sort of each chapter by each chapter. Um, and with that, I think about with that, I sort of think about different ways that I could have these characters fit. And then as I'm writing and I'm sort of getting into the spirit of these characters and I'm understanding who they are a bit more intrinsically, the words sort of flow a little bit better, and it's not as like janky. Like they're able to, they sort of they sort of have a mind of their own, and as long as like we can get back on track with where we're supposed to be, I'm okay with it. um they are, again, they're a delightful, it's always delightful to see where exactly where exactly it goes, because majority of the time I am able to get it back on track in terms of the planning, but it might take a little detour, and like maybe another chapter is added, or like I'll save like that through line for another, for like a little short story after the fact, or like save the characters for that might be cropping up for another time.
So what's your favorite part of the writing process? Drafting, revising, world building, or character development, and why?
Drafting.
Drafting.
I like being able to just get it all out on the page. I find when I'm drafting, I'm getting a lot of my character development at the same time. I really do go into a lot of my books. Like I plan everything out, but then, or plan out enough, but then again, giving the characters that breathing room, I sort of say, okay, like how does this sort of fit in? And if I need to revise the plot, as long as it'll be fine. There's like I'm not holding anything to any one of these characters, and if the story doesn't fit, then we'll figure out another way to work around it. But I definitely do enjoy. I don't World building isn't my favorite. I plan a lot of my books around areas that I already know and I've visited a lot, or so like in a future, not in a future series, it's going to be based off of a fictional university, which is where I went to university, and then another one is based off of like a small little town in the middle of nowhere where our old family barn is from. So I try and keep a lot of like my realism, and like I write a lot of contemporary fantasy because high fantasy world building sounds like an absolute nightmare to me.
Mhm.
I don't know the best way to like word it other than like it just seems like all gibberish to me when I sit down and I read a high fantasy book. And so like having the idea, like just attempting to even write one seems like such a huge monumental task.
Mhm.
And contemporary is much more my speed in terms of just being able to have that sort of foot in reality as well. But then revising is probably my nightmare. Like as much as like world building is yucky, revising and editing are probably my least favorite things. I'm just not good at it. I think I'm perfect. And it's always a cruel twist of fate every time I open up my draft after I've like gone through it once and I've finally finished it and I've like put it off for a week and I come back to like there's like already glaring issues within the first page of the writing. I'm like, this is so rude. I'm so attacked because I thought it was perfect.
I agree with you there because like with me and revising, it's like just hit me with the book. I'm done with it.
Yeah, you're done with the draft. You want to put it away. You're like, I'm good. I'm perfect. If I had one superpower in the world, it would be to write the perfect book. That would be it. Like I wouldn't want it any other way.
And I also like I love my editors and like the people that read my book with me, but like sometimes when they give me like, oh, that chapter over there or this doesn't make sense, you need to change it, I get offended. But I and then I'm like, okay, can I change it? And then I'm like, but it needs to be there. It's like revision is like my worst enemy.
Yeah, I feel you so much. Ugh.
Yeah. I don't
Yes.
know like what tips you could give to anybody, but like for me, it's just I just have to. I think like the way I've gotten around it is that I will just set a word limit per chapter, and it's like don't go over that because I know when it comes to cutting, I'm a mess. I cannot cut words to save my life.
You know what? I haven't had to cut any words.
Yeah.
Not to brag. Honey Tongued is only like 70,000. It's like max 71,000. It's not a crazy large book. I usually I aim to fit within like 75,000 words when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And so I know if I'm lagging a little bit in terms of the amount of that I'm writing or like I'm missing a bit of chunks and I'll go back and like what other scenes could I add? Usually it's going to be a spicy scene because I know that at least one of those I can at least one of those I can write like 2,000 to 4,000 words. I'm like, "Oh, in my back pocket. Perfect." Just making sure it fits within the book. That's the issue. But for authors or aspiring authors and I'm not perfect. Again, I do have an editing team and I have arc readers and I love every single person who's read my books and who has read everything and it's like this is good or you should probably work on this. Making sure that you're able. I think the thing that a lot of authors really struggle with at the beginning is accepting the criticism that they get with their books.
Yeah.
Or I'm surrounded by very hypocritical people all day, every day. I'm constantly told that I suck.
No.
Not just by me, but like not just by me, but like by the masses and like, oh, like why do we have to do this? Like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing in the world. And it's like, yeah, I know, but like if you get through it, then we can get to fun things. But and so making sure that you're able to accept criticism, and that's a process that you have to sort of like grow with. Like it's not something you can initially say is like I'm so good at this. Every once in a while you're gonna get a piece of criticism, you're gonna like, and it's gonna knock you flat on your ass. And you're gonna be like, I wasn't expecting this. Which is like I mean I've been posting on threads. I'm like I just need someone to give me my first 1-star review so I can rip the band-aid off at this point. Like I'm told regularly that I suck, but not within my creative my creative space. I need to be knocked down a peg because right now my head's not able to fit through doors. It feels like.
It's good to be on that high though.
It is, but I'm waiting. Like it's that penny, like waiting for the penny to drop. I'm like I just need this to happen.
It's always the worst even when you like expect it.
Yeah. Like I reviewed my own book and I gave it 4 stars because I'm like, I don't think this is a perfect book. like I'm my own worst, apparently I'm my own worst critic at this point. But like I feel like once you get a negative review, you'll know that you've made it. Like I think that's also part of it. Like the positive reviews are great. I love positive reviews. They give me such an emotional high. Like I'm floating through work. I'm like, this is perfect. And then it's just, again, it just needs to be that grounded in reality moment as well.
So I had one more question for
Yeah,
you on the fantasy side.
yeah.
So the rules of magic or myth are often invisible in your novel. How do you decide what to reveal to the reader and what to leave mysterious?
Well, because a lot of it was through Meal's point of view. Meal wasn't necessary to the whole project. They were only present, like needed for a specific part of the project. So, or Mabon's ultimate goal. So that's kind of what I kind of kept. That's kind of why I kept a lot of it like that. Those undercurrents really, really hidden until Meal started getting to experience the hive, and then moving on from there, because that's when Mabon knew that he had his claws sort of stuck in in Faye, sorry. But I don't think they were hidden that. I think there were a few things like you could see from the initial experience, or from the initial concert that Mabon had. Like I tried really hard to make sure that like there was that trance of the concert goers while he was singing, and like that theme of that, like that hypnotism, it definitely comes up a lot, because he wants them pliable for his own good, and he's wanting them to say, oh, this was really good, you should keep going. And again, it's like one of those like predators where they're so beautiful until you don't realize how dangerous they are, and then they've already like trapped you. So he's spinning this web, and he's slowly, and that, so trying to make sure that the web was invisible enough that unsuspecting humans or people were coming into this and they were experiencing him, was really important within the book. And so like trances were part of that. But the magic aspect of it didn't really like become full force until we sort of saw the songwriting process. We saw them smoking the joint in LA. We saw and like moving on from there into the crux of Electric Picnic in Ireland, which was the final sort of that final stop in that tour of growth from Mabon.
So we're moving on to like the fun part, which is I always enjoy. So this is just for fun. So if Mabon had a secret playlist that readers never got to hear, what's one song that would definitely be on it?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like he wouldn't listen to a lot other than probably himself.
Yeah,
I
I
think
I gathered that from him as well.
he's pretty he's pretty narcissistic. I'm just looking at this like my one of my playlists right here. Um you know what? I maybe Worship by Lizzo. I think he'd be like, "Yes, worship me." And that's the general gist of the song. I think like he seems like he could potentially be a very poppy art. He could, if in another life, he could probably be a very poppy artist other than alternative. But I mean also like any Noah Khan, or I don't even know if Hosier would be in this world, but like probably like a Noah Khan or like Lizzo's Worship. I think that would be like Mabon.
Okay, so let's imagine an Ode to the Honey-Tongued gets adapted for screen. Who would your cast? Who would you cast as Mabon, and who would you want to direct it?
No, that's hard. I don't. Um, I don't even know, like, because I'd want it to be an Irish character,
Mhm.
and oh, I don't know at this point.
No, I don't
I don't know. This is you're asking a very hard question for me.
know.
I
You know what? When I'm
maybe
like, when I'm like trying to like picture Mabon, I don't know why I just picture like Ian Somerhalder's like eyes and like the wiggly eyebrows. I don't know why I picture that. I just feel like that's the vibe he's given. I don't know, because it's very like magnetic. I don't know.
yeah, I know, like, maybe potentially, like, if Andrew Scott was tall and blonde and maybe was potentially like Hosier, because like Mabon is essentially a blonde Hosier with sort of this magnetic power as well. I feel like Andrew Scott can really sort of turn on the magneticism. Oh, you know what? I lied. Robert Sheehan.
Robert Sheehan.
He like from like Klaus from Umbrella Academy. Him.
Oh,
That
he's
would be
good.
he would be him. Yeah, that would be Mabon.
Oh wow, yeah.
And then directing, who was the Midsummer's director? Because it'd probably just be them. Ari Aster probably would be. I would probably prefer to have them as the director, because this book was so heavily based on Midsummer that I feel like that would be like it would just sort of fit within the vibes, and it would work.
So, what's something readers often miss on a first read, but you hope they'll catch on a second?
Who his friends are.
Mm-hmm.
There are some. It's not just Celtic mythology. There's many other pantheons within this world, that are all sort of vying for attention. And I think a lot of his friends have. Some of his friends are much more popular than others, in terms of the general mythos and what is being currently spilled into the earth, or not spilled into the earth. That's the wrong phrasing. That are currently being put into the literary circles in terms of mythologies that are being mass stripped, and like sort of pared down for like ease of digestibility. So there are some characters within there that and within his friend group that I think people would recognize, but then I think people have to go back and sort of look at like some of the other characters that his friends are and see like how those guys could be, or who those guys could possibly be.
If you could tell Neil one thing author to character, what would it be?
I'm sorry.
You're sorry?
I'm sorry. Meal didn't deserve what Faye got, and I think that with the final sort of couple of pages, we see Meal grow into a character that we haven't seen yet. But unfortunately, Meal has gone through a lot with this with Mabon alone, and I think that's I do feel for Fair.
So we're gonna wrap it up with 2 questions. So what's next for you as a writer? Are you working on a follow-up or something completely different? I know we've touched upon that a bit.
So I've stockpiled a bunch of manuscripts. I've currently got a sort of a very dark romance, fantasy or contemporary like urban fantasy series with not supernatural, supervillains and heroes. It's takes place in the characters are about university age. They're like 25 or 24 to 28ish. And it's gonna be a 4-book series plus a novella. I've currently got the first 4 books written. And they're getting sent off and being edited and torn to shreds, as one's work usually is. But then I'm also working on a PWHL sapphic romance. I have a whole bunch of series for that as well. Lots of plans. I've got a werewolf book that's currently like waiting in the wings, and the sequel for that one just got finished up in terms of planning. So lots of plans. It's just the idea of when am I going to start releasing them, and like how many do I stockpile before I actually start publishing. But again, there's more with Honey Tongued as well, and we'll just sort of see from there.
So where can our listeners connect with you online, and where can they get the book?
So they can get the book on Amazon. It's available through Kindle Unlimited, I think in just about every country available or possible. It's available Kindle Unlimited, and then also through paperback. But then you can find me on Threads and Instagram at wagrace.author. And then you can also find me on TikTok at Haunted Miracle. because that was before I started my author persona.
So it was very lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much for sitting down with us today and telling us a bit about your writing journey and the book, and we wish you luck on your writing journey.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about Honey Tongued. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for being able to meet me at such a late time for yourselves. I really do appreciate it.